The wise woman works in cycles and seasons, with the turning of the planets and the pulsation of life. Susun Weed, in Wise Woman Herbal for the Childbearing Year. I spent the weekend listening to the wonderful herbalist and wise woman healer Susun Weed and reading some of her books about the 7 rivers of healing. Each week in my midwifery program, we have to give a short presentation on a specific topic, and this week I was assigned the wise woman tradition of healing and how it applies to birth, which was very exciting for me because I love Susun Weed and how insightful she is with the words that she uses to speak about the wise woman traditions. And these traditions are also very steeped in Chinese influence. If you see that side of it, if you're familiar with Chinese philosophy and Chinese medicine, which of course, for those of you who've been following and listening along to this podcast, you know that it is one of my other favorite topics of study. In fact, as I was spending time going through her books again and listening to one of her 7 Rivers of Healing courses, I was inspired to create a new mini Wise Woman Tradition course within my own online childbirth education program. So I just wanted to share some of this inspiring information with you here on the podcast so it can serve you on your pregnancy and birth journey as well, while I work on developing this new mini course that's intended to provide another perspective of health and birth and how to really own your own birth experience. If you love it and you want to dive in deeper, you can find out more about my online childbirth program at naturalbirthcompass.com/course. And if you're already enrolled in my online childbirth course, then you'll automatically get access to the new mini Wise Woman Tradition in Birth and Pregnancy course when it's ready. But before you go check that out, let's figuratively dive into the 7 Rivers of Healing today on the Journey to Birth podcast. Imagine transforming the anxiety, the worry, and uncertainty you have about your birth right now into the confidence and knowledge that will end everyone's questions about your natural birth and even have them asking you how you did it. Are you ready to stop imagining your wonderful birth and start preparing to experience it? Then you're in the right place. I'm Tristan, the creator of the Natural Birth Compass online childbirth education program, and I'm coming to your ears with perspectives of birth from across time and cultures to help you become more informed and confident in your birth. So grab your mug, fill it with your favorite tea, and let's begin the journey to birth. The 7 rivers of healing are relevant in all aspects of our health, but even more so when it comes to birth. In short, they describe the course that we should follow in regard to health and healing. So the 7 rivers go like this. The first one is do nothing, also called embrace emptiness or serenity medicine. The second one is collect information or investigate options, or also called story medicine. Number 3 is engage energy or restore energetic connections or mind medicine. Number 4 is nourish and tone or strengthen and feed or lifestyle medicine. Number 5 is stimulate and sedate, incite strong responses, or also called alternative medicine. Number 6 is called take pills or ingest drugs or pharmaceutical medicine. And number 7 is called break and enter or destroy and remove obstructions or high-tech medicine. Now, there's so much that I could say about each one of these steps or each one of these rivers and how we move from one to another. And the names might give you an impression about each of them. And they do all have a place in our health and healing journey. But I'm not going to go into depth here on each river itself. Instead, I want to give you a peek into how these look in regard to a common birth event and how the interventions might unfold so that you get an understanding in a real life scenario that you could face or that you could imagine yourself in or that maybe you have gone through. And you can really see how you could wade your way through these rivers to go from 1 to 7, or what happens when we jump between the rivers in the wrong order. So the example that I'm going to talk about in regard to these rivers is going post-date in your pregnancy. So going past your expected date of birth, or what you might know of, it's commonly referred to as going past your due date. So by the medical definition, going post-date is going beyond your 39th completed week of pregnancy. So once you start the first day of your 40th week, you're technically late by the current standards of the medical model. Now, in most cases, we know that dates of birth, or what are called due dates, are estimates. All babies have their own date of readiness, and we don't have a complete understanding of the miracle of the spontaneous onset of labor. But it nearly always happens on its own at some point around this time in the pregnancy. The question here becomes, if you do go post-date, how long do you have before your caregiver starts bringing up interventions? The many flaws of calculating the estimated date of birth is a completely relevant question and a whole area of study in and of itself, but also a topic for another day. So, in regard to the 7 rivers of healing, the situation for going past your due date could look something like this. Now, imagine you've woken up this morning and you're now 40 weeks pregnant. Today is day 1 of the 40th week. Your care provider sets you up for the talk about what happens now that you're here at 40 weeks with no signs of labor. So you listen as they tell you how long they're willing to wait before they bring you in for an induction, or if you're working with an out-of-hospital caregiver, how long you have before they have to transfer you to a hospital, to the care of an OB or a midwife who works within the hospital system for an induction, which in an otherwise healthy pregnancy is usually somewhere around 41 or 42 weeks. Again, this is going to be dictated by medical standards wherever you are, by policies, by regulations, by the allegiance of your care provider, whoever is helping you with that care and having this discussion with you, whatever their allegiance is to their licensure body. So now at first, you may choose to do nothing. Especially if you're only just at 40 weeks, you may not really feel the urgency to rush in and do anything about it. But do nothing, the first river, it doesn't mean that you literally do nothing. It really means that you take time to listen to your body, to listen to your baby, to cut out all of the outside distractions, to get into a place of silence and really listen to what you and to what your baby need to feel safe, to feel confident, to feel nourished and prepared for your birth. Now, how long you choose to stay in this river is very individual and will depend on a lot of factors. What's important here is to find the point in the silence where you can really listen to yourself and not be influenced by what everyone else is telling you to do. And then set a time for how long you're comfortable remaining in this river if labor still doesn't start. Maybe it's only a few days, maybe it's a week, maybe 2 weeks is what feels comfortable to you. That's a question that only you can answer and a time frame that only you can define. And it's something that you can be flexible about. When you wake up on the first day of the 40th week, you don't already have to determine exactly how many days you'll stay there, but it's good to have some kind of framework around what feels comfortable to you. Now, perhaps after some time in the first river, you decide that you want to take some next steps and see what options are out there for you. After you've spent some time in the quiet, in the silence, connecting in with yourself and connecting in with your baby, you might want to start gathering information from outside of yourself. Now, this river must be traveled carefully and with a clear head so that you can take what you need and leave what you don't. This river requires careful discernment. Now, this word discernment, it's a word that comes up a lot in our midwifery course because there's so much information. There's so many opinions offered up when it comes to pregnancy and birth. And you as the mother need to be very discerning. You need to be very careful and very picky about what information is helpful for you and that you take to heart, and what information is not meant for you to carry and you leave behind. I'm sure you've already experienced this throughout your pregnancy. As soon as people find out you're pregnant, they suddenly have all kinds of opinions, all kinds of quote unquote facts or stories that they feel the need to share with you. And it can feel very overwhelming, especially the variety of opinions offered around birth and babies. And you don't have to take everything that everybody is telling you. That's where making sure that you've gotten really clear in that first river becomes so important, because that increases your ability to be discerning about all of the information that's coming in. Then you can take it and spend time in that silence again and get really clear on what's helpful for you and what's not helpful for you. Some examples of gathering information in river number 2 may be things like keeping track of your baby's movements, your baby's kicks, checking in about your own energy levels and your sleep, assessing how overall you're feeling. You may opt to ask for, or if it's offered, accept something like a biophysical exam or a non-stress test to see how your baby's doing. Now, these tests may not feel necessary to you, in which case it's completely in your right to refuse them, but they are there for you should you decide that you do want them. Gathering information could also include learning about different induction methods, different options, and the different side effects that they may come with. If you get to the point where you do have to start making more and more decisions about more and more invasive procedures, you may want to have some idea of what's being presented, especially if being informed helps you feel confident in making decisions and communicating with the caregiver. When you've gathered the information that you need to make an informed choice, then you may decide that what you want to do is actually return to the first river for a time and just be at peace and just distill the information that you've acquired. Or you may decide to move on to river number 3. River number 3 is about engaging energy. This could involve carefully evaluating your emotions about the progression of your pregnancy, about the upcoming birth, about becoming a mother. Are you feeling stressed or concerned about any of that? Or are you feeling excited and confident? Understanding your own emotions and exploring where they come from is an important part of maintaining a harmonious energy flow and being able to let go and open into labor when the time comes. This river also involves using energy medicine, like homeopathy or meditation or relaxation practices. One of the most important aspects to keep in mind when you are in the third river is to become very clear about the desire to control the outcome versus trust the process. When you try to control the onset of labor and you become too attached to the outcome, it forces you to become more and more inflexible, which is the opposite state that you want to be in for the onset of labor. If instead you engage your energy with the understanding that nature and the process of birth is really working for you, and with that knowledge, you can find trust in the process and trust in your body. You move into a more flexible state. And this is a state that naturally moves you toward the outcome that you seek in a healthy and natural manner. If you choose to incorporate things like affirmations, visualizations, or hypnosis techniques in this river, consider focusing them on building up trust in your body and in the nature of birth, rather than specifically on initiating labor. The example that Susan gives for this is to think about an affirmation for abundance, for having everything that you need, for really trusting nature to provide, versus an affirmation asking for $1 million. If you focus on the general abundance of the universe and the abundance of Earth and having enough, you will see how the universe provides. But if you're focused on getting the $1 million, you probably have a slim chance of manifesting that with an affirmation. So relax and open up to the process rather than restraining that energy by trying to control something that you can't control. Now, River 4 will have you evaluating the many ways that you're nourishing yourself and your baby. Are you getting enough protein? Are you getting enough rest? Are you getting proper exercise without over-exercising? You can listen to more about some of these aspects of pregnancy care on episode number 11 of this podcast, Strength in the Birth Room and Beyond, where I talk about optimal exercise approaches for pregnancy. Other things you may consider while in the fourth river is taking some nourishing herbs if you're not already doing that. Something like red raspberry leaf, nettle, and oat straw herbal infusion. I have an episode devoted to nourishing and strengthening herbs. It's episode number 17, Herbs in Pregnancy Part 1, all about using herbal allies in pregnancy to keep yourself healthy and for more of a maintenance and nourishing aspect. So aspects of River 4 are going to be more about nourishing and strengthening yourself, your body, and being physically ready for birth. Then after River 4, if you're still waiting for baby, you may choose to cross the Great Divide into River 5, which is Stimulate and Sedate, where we incite a strong response with more aggressive therapies and herbs. Now, once you arrive at the headwaters of River 5, things can start to move fast, and that's where the danger of side effects rises. Now, the first 4 rivers are different approaches of strengthening and harmonizing your physical body, your emotional body, and your spirit. And when used with your inner wisdom, the first 4 rivers do not do harm. But when you enter River 5, it's with the intent that the approach and the risks inherent in the approach, such as any harm, any side effects, or any impact to your healing and recovery, that these all outweigh the risk of not using the approach. These are therapies that have merit when they're needed, but they do need to be used judiciously and when the time is right, which is important to keep in mind. Nothing in these rivers is about right or wrong. Instead, you need to be asking, is it necessary? And if so, when is it the right time to approach the respective river for you and the situation? So in the 5th river, you'll find approaches to induction such as acupuncture, the Webster technique from the chiropractic tradition, massage or strong acupressure on specific active points along meridian systems of the body. This river also includes stronger herbal medicines, those which may have side effects, such as black cohosh, dongui, or even castor oil would also be in this river. These are often sought out as kind of a last-ditch effort before something more invasive like a medical induction. It's always wise to ensure that you and your baby are healthy enough through the first 4 rivers to receive these therapies before including them into your healing journey. Remember that the benefit of the therapy or the herb or whatever approach it is that you're choosing should outweigh the risk. Now, for you, this might simply involve checking into that silence and listening to your intuition. Or it may be having a non-stress test or an ultrasound before trying any kind of induction technique. None of these are right or wrong. All options just need to be used judiciously and according to what feels safe and comfortable for you and your pregnancy, and after you have gone through the other 4 rivers. Now, if you've reached the end of your time, whether that means that you're no longer comfortable being pregnant, or you feel that you really do need to accept the interventions that your care provider is recommending for any reason that is authentic and true to you. Again, there's no right or wrong here, only judicious and safe use. Then you may cross into the 6th river of taking medicine by opting for something like Pitocin or Cytotec. Or you may find yourself in the 7th river, breaking and entering or destroying and removing obstacles with something like a membrane sweep and stretch or membrane strip. Or maybe it's a Foley catheter or even artificially rupturing your membranes, your amniotic sac. That may be something that's offered for you from the 7th river. Remember, these 2 final rivers are the most intense. They're the fastest paced, and they're going to have the most rapids. Therefore, they are also the most prone to side effects, leading to other interventions or to disruptions in your postpartum recovery or your baby's transition into the world. So it's really important to proceed into rivers 6 and 7 with caution, and only after you've spent time in the other rivers, checking in with yourself, gathering all the information that you need to make a fully and truly informed choice, exploring and calming your emotions, leaving behind control and transitioning into trust, and nourishing and strengthening yourself and your baby so you can be strong throughout the process and have the easiest recovery possible. Even if the 7th river becomes the river you find you must enter. If you're not prepared to enter the 6th or 7th rivers, they're more likely to lead to other interventions like episiotomy or the use of forceps, even cesarean birth. But with the right preparation, you can enter these rivers and navigate with clear direction of your compass and finish your journey with exactly the birth that you and your baby needed. But if you're not prepared, they can lead you and your baby down an unnecessarily perilous journey that was not guided by you, but by someone else on your birth team. Even if you make the choice to accept interventions, you should still be the one who is at the helm of your ship. You should feel confident in your decisions and never opting for interventions out of fear, but of necessity that you identified. There are definitely times in life when the 6th and 7th rivers absolutely save lives. It may save your life or my life, but rarely is birth a life-saving event. It's a beautiful life event, another turn of the cycle of our life journey that we are all on, and something that is completely in your capacity to experience intervention-free if you choose to accept and trust and be open to the journey that way. This is why I love the approach of the wise woman tradition for pregnancy and birth. It's really such a practical way to see how many steps there are between doing nothing and accepting a major intervention, such as an induction or even something like a membrane sweep, which so many women are told is routine, even as early as 35 or 36 weeks in some places. Maybe you yourself have already even been offered a membrane sweep, and you're not even at 40 weeks yet. And when we look at the rivers, we can see that something as invasive as a membrane sweep, which your provider may talk about as something that's very minimally invasive, but it does belong in the seventh river, in the break and enter river, because it is invasive. Remember, the other name for the seventh rivers is destroy and remove obstacles. Is your own cervix and your own amniotic sac really an obstacle? Or are we disrupting a process with a physical manipulation that carries very real risks? Risks that may not be shared with you or may be downplayed, like your amniotic sac rupturing prematurely, or inducing an infection, or altering the pace of your labor, which can result in an increased chance of tearing during birth, which is usually a fear of most women, or increasing the chance for other interventions to be introduced with your labor, which is more than common. The timing of your labor is an important part of the process that's never discussed, it's never talked about, it's not well understood, but it is unique to each labor and birth. There are already so many other things that interfere with the natural pace and unfolding of birth today that any unnecessary medical intervention is just not serving that aspect of the process. And even beyond pregnancy and birth, you will find that you're accessing these rivers as you navigate parenting and as you become the primary healthcare provider in your own household for your own family. I believe that there's no time in your life that you should be completely dependent upon someone else to make your healthcare decisions for you or someone in your family. Your healthcare team, they should be your advisors. It should be a place that you go when you're in River 2 and searching for information. And you should only move into Rivers 5 or 6 or 7 by your choice, if that's what you find is the help that you need. But that always has to be your choice, your decision. And by your choice, I also mean that you're not manipulated into making the choice that your caregiver wants or even needs you to make, which unfortunately is an approach used in all kinds of healthcare settings, even in all kinds of relationships. And at some point, I will record an entire episode that will go into more depth about this issue because it's so important for you to be aware of. And oftentimes, providers don't even realize that they're doing it. They're not doing it maliciously. They probably truly believe that what they're recommending is the best thing for you. But they themselves may not know all the options. They only know what they know and what they do all the time. But in most cases, other options exist outside of what it is that they usually do in their clinics. That's exactly what these rivers are all about, helping you avoid being put into this situation or being put into the wrong river without moving through the succession of rivers in the proper order. So let's just review. The 7 rivers of healing in the wise woman tradition, as described by Susun Weed, are: first, do nothing or embrace emptiness, serenity medicine. The second river is to collect information, investigate options, or story medicine. Third is to engage energy, restore energetic connections, or mind medicine. The fourth river is nourish and tone, strengthen and feed, or lifestyle medicine. Number 5 is stimulate and sedate, incite strong responses, or alternative medicine. Number 6 is take pills or ingest drugs or pharmaceutical medicine. And finally, river number 7 is break and enter, destroy and remove obstacles, or high-tech medicine. You can find a lot more information on this or go into so much more depth on these in her book, Healing Wise by Susun Weed, that's Susunweed, which I highly recommend because there's so many more layers to the wise woman traditions and to understanding this information. But at least knowing these 7 rivers, this is probably the most important thing that you could know going to your birth. But of course, you would not regret going deeper with her book if you want to keep your health and your healthcare choices in your own hands for your entire lifetime. Again, if you want to go deeper on this aspect of pregnancy and birth with me and have this tool in your birth kit, I am working on a new mini course on the Wise Woman tradition for pregnancy and birth that will be included in our full online childbirth course. So if you'd like to continue on with this study, you can learn more about the full course at naturalbirthcompass.com/course. You can always email me, info@naturalbirthcompass.com, or you can find me on Facebook or Instagram at Natural Birth Compass. You're welcome to message me there. So I will close this out for today. I will see you again soon, and thanks so much for joining me on my midwifery journey. I hope learning along with me will help you in finding more empowerment on your journey to birth. See you next time. Thank you for listening and being open to new perspectives as we spent this time together. As always, let me know how I can support your journey. If you have topics you want to hear about, guests you'd like to hear from, questions or comments to share, let me know. This podcast is always transforming, and you can help shape it into something that helps thousands of families have the best pregnancy, birth, and transition into parenthood possible by leaving a comment or a review or sharing this podcast with others in your life who will benefit from our discussions. Find me on the socials at Natural Birth Compass or email me at info@naturalbirthcompass.com. And don't forget to subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss out on our next episode. Wishing you a wonderful journey to birth.